Imagine a world where your business can thrive. And I don't mean just by being profitable, but by improving the earth and the communities that it hosts. Sounds amazing, right? Well, that's what ESG is all about. And it's here. Today, we are talking about what ESG really means and why it matters to everyone, not just investors, and how it could even impact your future. Let's first talk about what ESG is. And I know you've heard this a million times before, but I promise we will go beyond the ESG stands for environmental, social governance theme. We're giving you more. But seriously, ESG stands for environmental, social governance. ESG was created by investors for investors. Surprised much? This was done to ensure that these investors, such as venture capitalists, private equity funds, and lenders, reduce the risk of their investments by only investing in companies that are sustainable, ethical, and prepared for the future in a market where consumers are increasingly conscious about how their decisions impact the environment. This eco-consciousness, or awareness, or whatever you want to call it, influences consumers' purchasing decisions and spending habits, which in turn has an impact on businesses and their profits. So can you see what's emerging? Customers care about the environment. So they start spending more of their money with companies that have the same values at the core of their business. And in turn, they limit their spending with companies that don't. Thus, companies who care about the environment tend to do better financially because more customers prefer to do more business with them. And as it goes, more business equals more profits, which mean better return for investors. Simple, right? And what makes this great is everyone wins, including our planet. And I know you might think that ESG is just another buzzword. And in a way, it probably is. Or at least appear to be. I mean, it's being thrown around everywhere. But it is an important one. And it is absolutely critical that we understand what it means. ESG is an approach where companies assess their operations and strategies in three key areas: environmental impact, social responsibility, and ethics. Why? Because they know it impacts the environment and it affects the well-being of their business in multiple ways. On the environmental impact front, it's all about knowing and managing how your business interacts with the planet. It's all about the green. And I'm not only talking about the environment here. Companies are turning up the dial in terms of how they are managing their resources and reducing their waste, because it makes a huge difference for the positive on their operating costs. For example, by reducing their waste or using less water or power, companies can save a serious chunk of change. And not only does slashing their energy use cut costs, but it adds appeal to those eco-conscious consumers that we spoke about earlier, making it easier for them to spend their hard-earned money with these caring organizations. Because all of a sudden, you're making an impact, a positive impact, on the environment. And this brings us to the investors. Investors are increasingly choosing to support and invest in companies that care about the environment and the planet, because they know that in the long run, these businesses are more likely to thrive. And let's face it, staying on the right side of environmental regulations help avoid troubles like fines and bad PR, because believe it or not, there are laws and legislations and stuff that help drive all of this. Moving on to social responsibility, This is all about how a company treats people inside and outside of the organization. We're talking about things like fair wages and compensation, safe working conditions, right through to how the organization supports local communities. And listen to me, come closer. This is really important. Companies who are good citizens tend to attract customers who care about spending their money with organizations that act responsibly and treat people and the environment well. They also attract top-notch talent. Employees prefer to work for businesses whose DNA aligns with their own core values. In the big picture, focusing on social responsibility helps build a strong, loyal community around the brand. And then there's leadership ethics. This one is huge because it is about the integrity of the people in the driver's seat of the organization. Ethical leadership involves transparency, honesty, and fairness across all business dealings. It's about setting a tone that promotes trust. Trust from employees, from customers, as well as investors. Companies that operate ethically avoid scandals and the kind of reputational damage that can sink them really fast. Moreover, ethical leadership inspires everyone at the company. It creates a positive work environment, and it helps drive the business forward with a clear moral compass. When a company focuses on these three key elements, they are not just ticking off boxes. They are building a robust foundation that supports sustainable growth, that attracts positive attention, and they are building a brand that is respected and admired. And yes, I do realize we are ticking off boxes. It's not what it's about. It's about doing well by doing good, which is a powerful way to stand out in today's competitive market. Now, when we talk about ESG, we're not just spouting out another corporate acronym that makes us sound cool at business conferences. This stuff really matters, and it's about making sure that businesses do more without focusing only on their bottom line. They are here to make a positive impact too. So, why does ESG matter? Well, first off, let's talk about the planet. Businesses that pay attention to their environmental practices help reduce pollution, lower carbon emissions, and just take better care of the earth in general. This not only means a cleaner world today, but also a livable one for future generations. It's about thinking big picture and long term, and ensuring that we are not just the tenants that's trashing the place on our way out. We're not just focusing on the earth though. We also have to focus on its people. Companies who focus on the S in ESG are all about treating people right. This includes everything from fair labor practices right through to supporting local communities. Companies should ensure that their operations don't harm, but rather help. Imagine a company that doesn't just pay fair wages, but also supports local school and healthcare initiatives. This sends a ripple effect of goodwill and stability throughout the community, which can have a profound impact. And here's the thing about governance. It may seem a bit dull, but good governance means a company is run responsibly, transparently, and ethically. And this builds trust, not only with investors and partners, but also with employees and customers. When a company is known for doing things right and being fair and open, it sets a standard within the industry. And this can set entire market practices and expectations towards a higher form of integrity and accountability. So ESG matters because it's about building a business that doesn't just favor the bottom line, but cares about the bigger picture. It's about businesses taking ownership in building a more sustainable, more ethical, and more equitable world. And let's be real, In a world full of challenges, why wouldn't you want to support a business that is part of the solution as opposed to being a part of the problem? Now, this all sounds fantastic, but surely there's got to be a way that we can measure and track all of this. I mean, we don't just close the taps and turn off the lights when we leave the room and then just trust that we're all doing great in our ESG efforts. Right? Right. So ESG processes and efforts are measured, tracked, and reported on in the form of an ESG report. Companies can market their ESG achievements towards potential customers to show their commitments. These claims, however, has to be backed up by hard evidence, which is disclosed as part of the ESG reports that the company publishes. Potential investors can use these reports to assess a company's sustainability practices and risks to help identify whether these companies are good and sound investments for them. These same reports can also be submitted to legislative authorities to prove compliance against imposed ESG legislation. Now, as you can imagine, ESG reports don't just appear out of thin air, and there are a few important components that you need to consider which will allow businesses to be able to track, measure, and report on their ESG efforts. There are ESG frameworks and standards which you can think of as the rule books for playing the ESG game right. These are comprehensive guidelines that companies can follow to ensure that their operations meet the standards and best practices for good ethics and sustainability. Whether it be the SASB standards that help businesses identify any financially material sustainability issues, or the GRI standards that help a company identify its social, environmental, and economic impact, these standards are absolutely critical. They provide a structured approach to implement ESG, ensuring consistency and comparability across industries and regions. Companies will then provide the information that is dictated by these ESG frameworks and standards, and these then are translated to ESG scores and ratings. Now, these ESG scores and ratings are like the leaderboards that show how well companies are doing in their ESG efforts. There are various agencies that analyze heaps of data to grade companies in their ESG efforts. Now, these scores help consumers and investors and other stakeholders to quickly gauge a company's commitment towards ESG principles. A high score can be seen as a big green light for investors who are looking for the next ethical investment opportunities, while a low score could indicate some red flags. Companies are normally very open and transparent about their ESG ratings and scores. And these scores and ratings are used by the company themselves to let the world know about their ESG achievements as well as their areas for improvement. And they do this through the publication of ESG reports and disclosures. This is also where the company would communicate their ESG strategies, actions, and outcomes. Effective ESG reporting is not just about boosting the company's reputation, but it's about showing that the company is not just all talk. It's about showing the impact of their ESG initiatives in a clear and verifiable way. Aside from all of these primary components that we just discussed, there are a bunch of secondary elements to ESG, such as integration into investment, regulatory and policy requirements, risk management, due diligence, stakeholder management, training and awareness, data and analytics, and so on. These secondary elements play an important supporting role and assists companies to weave ESG deeply into their corporate fabric and daily decision making. So in essence, in addition to good ethics, mastering these ESG principles is a good business practice overall. They help companies operate sustainably and ethically and ensures that they're prepared for the future and that they resonate positively with all of their stakeholders. So when we're talking about ESG, we're really talking about an entire system that supports companies in their journey to become genuinely sustainable and socially responsible. Through these practices, companies build a solid reputation, they attract top talent and investment, and they stay ahead of regulations. It's like setting up a triple win scenario. Good for the planet, good for the people, and good for the profits. If you are thinking about integrating ESG principles or any of its supporting processes into your business, click on the link in the description and we can happily connect you with the right experts to help guide you through that process. And don't forget to leave a tree emoji in the comments below to show your support for sustainable practices. Leaving a tree emoji is crucial to starting an ESG program and showing that you care. Speaking of caring, I'm going to leave you with this. You probably at some point have or will ask yourself the question, why should I care? And the simple truth is, if you are content with your business the way that it is, and you don't require any changes that has a need for funding, keeping in mind that funding isn't always required only for planned events, or you don't want to scale your business, then that's okay. And you probably don't need to care. The reality here, though, is that markets are changing and consumers are limiting their spending with companies that don't care. And that means that profits for those type of businesses will shrink and eventually dissipate. And remember, the decisions that we make today shape the world that we leave tomorrow. What world do you want to leave for future generations? Stay green, stay clean.